"Your position is terminated," my boss said flatly. "Clean out your desk by the end of the day." My name's Jake Wilson, 54 years old. And until that Monday morning, I was a senior systems analyst at Meridian Technologies in Columbus, Ohio. For almost 2 decades, I'd been the backbone of the IT department. From the dial-up days to cloud migration, I was the constant. 3 CEOs had come and gone, and I stayed, training every new hire, recovering every lost file, working through weekends and holidays without ever asking for a promotion or even a thank you. So when Daniel called me in his office and I saw Vanessa from HR already sitting there, I knew what was coming. The air around the place had changed weeks ago. "I understand," I said simply, nodding once. No anger, no begging, just quiet acceptance. Back at my desk, I started packing. A family photo, the coffee mug my son made in high school. A cactus that somehow survived 17 years under fluorescent lights. I felt eyes on me. Young employees stealing quick glances, then snapping back to their screens. Most of them were coders I had trained myself. Bright kids, but none of them truly understood the backbone of our systems. The older architecture, the custom software I'd written, the admin credentials buried 3 layers deep. Bethany from marketing stopped by, her face tight with concern. "Jake, I just heard. This is ridiculous. You practically built this place." I shrugged. "Companies change direction. Without any warning? After everything you've done?" Her voice was rising, drawing attention. "It's fine," I said softly. But it wasn't fine. I just wasn't going to make a scene. As I walked out, Daniel stepped from his office to watch me go. No handshake. No goodbye. Just making sure I left. What none of them seemed to realize was that I had quietly become the most critical person in the building. Not because I was some genius, but because I was thorough. I documented everything. I'd set up secure audit protocols years ago at the request of the legal team during a past scandal. And yes, I kept copies. In my car, I sat for a moment staring at the 12-story building where I'd spent most of my adult life. The security badge I just turned in had been renewed 16 times. I started the engine and drove home. They had no idea. Wednesday was going to be interesting. I'd been with Meridian back when it was just 2 floors in a business park. I started when my daughter Olivia was still in kindergarten. Now she was finishing grad school. The company grew, and I grew with it. I even turned down offers from competitors because loyalty mattered to me. My wife Andrea used to joke that the servers were my second family. Andrea wasn't entirely wrong when she said the servers were like my second family. I knew every system inside and out, every workaround, every hidden backdoor solution to problems the executives didn't even know existed. The infrastructure I'd built had survived 3 acquisitions and more so-called innovations than I could count. Management loved to chase shiny new ideas, only to abandon them months later. Then came Daniel, my boss for the last 5 years, a young MBA type who called our department IT resources instead of people. He spoke in buzzwords: streamlining, efficiency, digital transformation. All of it usually meant one thing: doing more with less. At first, I tried to help him understand the complexity buried under years of growth and adaptation. He'd nod, half listen, then repeat the same line in meetings: "We need to future-proof." Always looking right past me. About 6 months ago, he brought in a consultant named Jason Phillips. Expensive suit, firm handshake, Stanford degree polished across his LinkedIn profile. Daniel and Jason would huddle in conference rooms, lowering their voices the moment I walked by. Then, 3 months ago, I noticed something subtle. My access permissions were being changed. Nothing big, just small, quiet edits to my administrative controls. I didn't protest. I just watched and documented. "You seem distracted lately," Andrea said one night as we sat on the porch. "Is everything okay at work?" I nodded, sipping my beer. "Just changes. Nothing I haven't seen before." But the truth was, these changes felt different. Suddenly, I wasn't included in meetings. System upgrade emails stopped landing in my inbox. Projects that should have been mine were handed off to younger staff. Then I stumbled on it, the memo, a company-wide announcement about modernization initiatives. It outlined a full restructuring of the IT department under new leadership. Jason Phillips, My name wasn't even on the organizational chart. That same day, while running a routine security scan, one of those tedious background tasks no one else bothered with anymore, I found something strange. Unusual patterns inside our financial software. The transfers were small at first, regular payments to a vendor I'd never heard of, Apex Solutions Group. A quick search told me everything I needed to know. The company had been registered just last year. Its listed address, nothing more than a UPS store. The payments, though, were growing. Each month, more money funneled in. I didn't sound an alarm. I didn't say a word. I just copied the records, marked the dates, and kept watching. Sometimes the quiet man in the corner sees everything, precisely because everyone assumes he sees nothing. The morning after I was let go, I sat in my home office staring at my personal laptop. No alarm, no commute, just silence pressing in around me. Andrea set a cup of coffee beside me without a word. After 19 years of marriage, she knew when I needed space. "I'm going to the store," she said softly. "Need anything?" I shook my head. Once the door shut behind her, I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a flash drive, one of several I'd kept secured over the years. Technically, company policy forbade removing data off-site, but back when legal needed an audit system for tracking insider threats, I'd been very clear I'd need off-site backups. They signed off, then promptly forgot about it. I plugged the drive in. Emails, meeting minutes I shouldn't have had access to. Financial records most employees would never even know existed. I scrolled until I found it. The entire payment history to Apex Solutions Group. Nearly $1.8 million funneled out over the last 18 months. The approval trail led straight to our CFO, Brian Wilcox. I dug deeper, cross-referenced dates, lined up figures, and there it was, the pattern. Each transfer matched perfectly with a software license renewal, legitimate contracts we use company-wide. Except the numbers didn't match. The invoices were inflated, sometimes by 15%, sometimes by 20%. Small enough to slip under the radar, large enough to build into something significant. I pulled up Apex's registration again. The listed owner? Thomas Wilcox, Brian's brother-in-law. A quick check on social media confirmed it. They weren't just sloppy. They were siphoning money straight out of Meridian through fake markups on real expenses. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen washing over me. I didn't feel angry. Not exactly. This was something colder, more focused. For 17 years, I'd solved their problems, protected their systems, safeguarded their data. I was steady, reliable, invisible. And when they no longer needed me, they tossed me aside like obsolete hardware. My phone buzzed. A text from Steven, one of the junior analysts I'd mentored over the last 2 years. "Sorry about yesterday. Total BS what they did. Phillips is already moving into your old office." I set the phone down without responding. The puzzle finally fit together. Daniel and Brian needed me out of the way, removed before anyone could connect the dots on their little siphoning scheme. They probably assumed the evidence would vanish with me, chalk me up as an aging tech relic who didn't understand modern finance. They underestimated me. I opened my email and began drafting a message to the board of directors. My fingers typed quickly, the words sharp, damning. Then I paused, hand hovering over send. Too direct, too easy to dismiss as the bitter ramblings of a disgruntled employee. I needed leverage, precision, a move they couldn't bury or spin. I deleted the draft and leaned back. Tomorrow was Wednesday, board meeting day. Quarterly financials would be reviewed. Bonuses approved. Eyes everywhere on the numbers. The perfect stage. For the first time since being cut loose, I smiled. Wednesday morning, I sat in my car across from Meridian's glass towers, engine off, watching employees stream through the revolving doors with coffee cups and ID badges. In the passenger seat, my laptop glowed softly, logged into an email account I'd created years ago for penetration testing. An account designed to look internal, but hidden from the company's main directory. Untraceable. At exactly 9:15 a.m., I made my first move. An email to Daniel. Subject line, financial irregularities. Urgent review needed. Inside, a concise summary of what I'd uncovered about the Apex payments. Enough detail to be credible, but not the whole picture. I left out the Wilcox family connection. Too valuable to reveal this early. If Daniel was in on it, he'd panic. If he wasn't, he'd dig. Either way, I'd learned something. By 9:45, my phone lit up. Daniel's number. I let it ring out. His voicemail was short, clipped, urgent. Jake, we need to discuss your email. Immediately, I didn't call back. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop, set up my laptop, and waited. At 10:30, a new email appeared. This one was from Vanessa in HR. Mr. Wilson, we've received concerning communication from you that potentially violates your separation agreement. Please cease all contact with Meridian employees and remember your confidentiality obligations. Any further communications may result in legal action. So that was their play. Threaten, dismiss, isolate. One problem, I hadn't signed any separation agreement. At noon, I drove to my bank and accessed my safe deposit box. Inside was another backup drive, older, but containing critical files I'd never included in my regular copies. Among them were the original security protocols I designed, complete with detailed logs showing who had access to what systems and when changes were made. And there it was. 18 months ago, right when the Apex payments began, Brian Wilcox himself had requested expanded access to the financial approval systems. Back home, I found 3 missed calls. Daniel, Vanessa, and now Jason Phillips. I hadn't expected him to get involved so quickly. Interesting. When I checked my personal email, there was a message from Steven, marked urgent. Jake, they're saying you sent some crazy email about financial fraud. Phillips just called an emergency meeting. Everyone's talking. They're pulling your access to everything, even the old archives. We need those files to do our jobs. What's going on? Poor kid. Caught in the crossfire. I typed a short reply. Don't get involved, Steven. Just watch. At 3 p.m., my home phone rang, a number I hadn't used for business in years. I answered but said nothing. Jake, it's Brian Wilcox. His voice was steady, controlled. We should talk about your concerns. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Is that what you call it? I asked. Look, transition periods are always difficult. If you have questions about company finances, there are proper channels. Like the board. I cut him off. Silence on the line. The board doesn't need to be bothered with operational details. He finished finally. Why don't we meet tomorrow? Just you and me. We can clear this up, Brian suggested. Sorry, I'm busy tomorrow, I said. Besides, I think the board might be very interested in Apex Solutions Group and your brother-in-law. The sharp intake of breath on the other end told me everything. You're making a serious mistake, he said finally. We can make this right. Generous severance, references, whatever you need. Goodbye, Brian. I hung up. Within 10 minutes, Vanessa emailed me again. Suddenly, my severance package had doubled. This time with an attached agreement requiring complete confidentiality regarding all company matters. They were scrambling now, but they still thought I was running a simple extortion play. They had no idea what was coming. Thursday morning brought clarity. I'd spent the night combing through years of data, connecting dots I'd overlooked before. And what I found made everything crystal clear. The Apex scheme wasn't Brian's first trick. 3 years ago, shortly after he became CFO, another pattern emerged. Consulting fees paid to a firm called Lakeside Business Solutions. Different name, same game. Inflated invoices for services that were partially or never rendered. I traced the registration. This one led straight to Patricia Wilcox, Brian's wife. She was listed as CEO of a company with no website, no employees, and nothing more than a virtual office address. But the bigger revelation came when I dug into the email archives. Daniel hadn't just known about these arrangements. He'd helped facilitate them. In exchange, his department received budget increases while others faced cuts. He hadn't been promoted for his skills. He'd been brought in because the previous director had started asking questions about IT expenditures. Even Jason Phillips wasn't clean. His consulting firm had been brought in through an unusual process that bypassed procurement. His real role wasn't to modernize IT. It was to eliminate the one person who might notice the financial patterns. Me. The scheme was elegant in its simplicity. Create vendors that looked legitimate. Approve inflated payments. Split the difference. because actual services were technically being delivered, just at wildly inflated rates. Auditors scanning for outright fraud never caught it. Over 3 years, they'd siphon off nearly $4.3 million. I compiled everything into a comprehensive report. Spreadsheets showing the suspicious payment patterns, business registrations linking the companies to Brian's family, and emails proving Daniel's knowledge and participation. Then I made a move they wouldn't expect. I called Robert Shun, a board member I'd worked with years ago on a security implementation. Semi-retired now, but still active enough to attend the quarterly meetings. "Jake Wilson," he answered on the second ring. "Long time. Heard you left Meridian." "Not by choice," I said. "Robert, I need 15 minutes of your time. It's important." Silence. Then he said, "This about why Brian and Daniel have been huddled together looking like they've seen ghosts?" "Board meeting was tense yesterday." "Probably." He chuckled. "Always figured you knew where the bodies were buried. Where can we meet?" An hour later, we sat together on a bench in a quiet park, 3 miles from headquarters. I handed Robert a sealed envelope containing a printed summary and a flash drive. "That's everything," I said. "Dates, amounts, connections. I'm not looking for my job back, and I'm not looking for money. I just want the right people to know." Robert studied me carefully. "Why come to me?" "Because you actually read audit reports," I answered. "I've watched you in meetings. You ask questions." He nodded slowly. "There's an emergency board session tomorrow. Finance committee review. Convenient timing, Jake." He slipped the envelope into his pocket. "If this checks out, there will be serious consequences." "I'm counting on it," I replied. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Andrea. "Someone named Jason Phillips came by the house looking for you. Said it was urgent. I told them you weren't home. They were getting desperate." Good. That afternoon, I received job offers from 2 competing firms, both for positions well above my old role, each with substantial signing bonuses. Word had already spread about my sudden availability, but I ignored them. This wasn't about a new job. It was about finishing what they had started. That night, using credentials that should have been revoked, but weren't sloppy work, Jason, I accessed the company's email server one last time. I scheduled a message to be delivered to every board member at 8 a.m. the next morning. Subject line: "Before you approve Q2 bonuses, read this." Attached was my full report. Friday morning dawned clear and bright. I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood wake up. No alarm clock, no commute, just waiting. At exactly 8 a.m., my scheduled email delivered its payload to the board members. By 8:17, my phone started ringing. Numbers I didn't recognize, likely board assistants scrambling to reach me. I let them all go to voicemail. At 9 a.m., the Emergency Finance Committee meeting began. Robert Shun would be there, my documentation in hand, watching the reactions as my email landed and the truth spread across the table. At 9:32, Stephen texted me. "Police are here. Wilcox and Daniel being questioned in conference rooms. Phillips looks sick. What did you do?" I didn't respond. The wheels were turning exactly as I'd anticipated. By 10 a.m., Meridian's general counsel called. Unlike the others, I answered this one. "Mr. Wilson, this is Patricia Graves from legal. We need you to come in immediately to discuss the information you've provided to the board." "I'm available by phone," I said. "This really requires an in-person discussion." "No, it doesn't," I interrupted, calm and steady. "Everything I know is in that report. Everything I have is already backed up in multiple secure locations. If anything happens to me or my family, additional copies go straight to the SEC, IRS, and 3 news outlets." Silence. Then she replied, her voice measured. "Mr. Wilson, the board is taking this extremely seriously. Several executives have already been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. They would appreciate your cooperation. I've cooperated fully by providing complete documentation. My part is done." After she hung up, I drove 20 miles out of Columbus to a small diner. No sense being easy to find today. Over lunch, the first reports began appearing on local business sites. Meridian Technologies executives under investigation for financial irregularities. No names yet, but they would come. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Robert Shun. Robert's voice was tight when he called. It's a bloodbath, he said without preamble. Brian confessed the moment we put your evidence in front of him. He's trying to cut a deal, blaming Daniel for pressuring him. Daniel, of course, is denying everything. And Phillips claims he was just a consultant and had no knowledge of the finances. The board isn't buying it. All three have been suspended pending investigation. Forensic accountants come in Monday. Early estimate, at least $4.5 million diverted over 3 years. Possibly more. I nodded to myself. I've been close. The board wants to talk to you, Robert continued. Not just about coming back to your old role. They're creating a new position, Chief Security Officer, reporting directly to the board. I had anticipated the possibility, but still felt a flicker of surprise. I'll think about it, I told him. That evening, I told Andrea everything. She listened quietly, then asked the one question I hadn't yet answered for myself. What do you want to do? Good question. The revenge was complete. The people who pushed me out were now facing criminal charges. Justice had been served cold and exact. But going back, returning to the company that had discarded me after 17 years, could I do that? Did I even want to? I need time to decide, I said finally. Later that night, I opened my laptop and posted a single line to my otherwise dormant LinkedIn profile. Never burn bridges. Just let them collapse under the weight of their own greed. Within minutes, messages started flooding in. Colleagues, competitors, industry contacts. Word was spreading fast. The quiet systems guy had just taken down 3 executives without raising his voice. By Monday, everyone would know exactly who they had underestimated. Monday morning, I walked into Meridian's headquarters in a suit I hadn't worn in years. The security guard glanced up, startled, then quickly printed me a visitor badge. "Welcome back, Mr. Wilson," he said with a respect I hadn't heard before. The elevator ride to the executive floor was silent, tense. I never had a reason to come here before. Now I was expected. 10 board members sat around a gleaming table. Robert Chun gave me a small nod. The interim CEO, formerly the COO, looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Wilson," she began, "thank you for coming. The situation you've exposed is unprecedented. The forensic team now estimates nearly $5.2 million was siphoned off. Criminal charges are already being prepared." I stayed quiet. Robert cleared his throat. "Jake, the board has unanimously voted to create a new executive position, Chief Information Security Officer. Full privileges, reporting directly to the board. We'd like to offer you the role." I placed a folder on the table. "Inside, you'll find my conditions," I said. "Non-negotiable." The CEO opened it. Her eyebrows shot up as she scanned. "Full audit authority across all departments. Independent veto power on financial technology spending." I nodded once. "This is unusual," she said carefully. "So it was embezzling $5.2 million, I replied. "That happened because no one was watching. Now someone will be." Silence filled the room. "You have until noon," I said, standing. "I have other offers." As I reached the door, Robert called after me. "Jake, did you plan this all along?" I paused, turned slightly. I didn't plan on being fired after 17 years. Everything after that, just me doing what I've always done, identifying vulnerabilities and fixing them. At 11:47, my phone rang. They had accepted every condition. 6 months later, I sat in my corner office. The Columbus skyline spread wide through the glass. The view was a reminder of how much had changed. Brian Wilcox had pled guilty and cut a deal for reduced time. Daniel was still fighting the charges, but the evidence was stacked against him. Jason Phillips had fled to Brazil, only to be extradited back. Most of the money had been recovered, enough to protect Meridian from collapse. My old team now reported to me, though Stephen handled the daily operations. The kid had potential. He just needed someone to believe in him. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Andrea stood there, smiling. "Ready for lunch?" I grabbed my jacket, and we walked together through the IT department. Conversations dimmed as we passed, not from fear, but respect. Everyone knew what had happened. They knew I could have destroyed the company. Instead, I'd saved it. In the elevator, Andrea squeezed my hand. "Happy?" she asked softly. I thought about it. The anger that fueled me in those first days had burned out. What remained wasn't happiness exactly, but something steadier. Satisfaction. Completion. I'm good, I said. Outside, the October sun warmed our faces as we walked toward a nearby restaurant. My phone buzzed. A message from Robert Shun. Board approved your security budget increase. Unanimous vote. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, smiling slightly. Andrea noticed. What is it? Nothing, I said. Just thinking about bridges. Some collapse under their own weight. Others, once repaired, end up stronger than ever. This one, I glanced back at the skyline, I built right this time.